Baru, the Marrow Truth, the Laboreas, fluorescent lights, hummed their stereo dirge as Dr. Helena Voss descended into the sub-basement archives. Her footsteps echoing against concrete walls that had witnessed decades of classified research. The air grew thicker with each step downward, heavy with the metallic temps of preservation chemicals and something else, something organic and wrong that made her sinuses burn. Her fingers trembled as she inserted the security card into the final door. The lock disengaged with a pneumatic hiss, releasing a wave of fetid air that carried whispers of decayed ancient earth. The chamber beyond stretched into shadows that seemed to swallow her flashlight's beam, revealing rows upon rows of specimen containers suspended in amber-colored fluid. But it was the central display that drew her forward like a moth to flame. The skeleton hung suspended in its glass prison, impossibly tall and wrong, in ways that made her eyes water to perceive. 7 feet of bone that had never belonged to any creature in the fossil record, yet bore the unmistakable markers of human ancestry. The skull was elongated, the jaw distended to accommodate teeth, the curved like simian. The rib cage expanded far beyond human proportions, while the spine showed evidence of radical restructuring, fused and reformed to support a frame that defied anatomical logic. But it was the hands that made her stomach lurch. Fingers stretched to impossible lengths, each digit ending in bone spurs that had grown through what remained of the fingertips. The metacarpals showed signs of repeated fracturing and healing, as if the creature had spent its existence clawing through stone and earth. The placard beneath bore a date that predated recorded history, and a location that no longer existed on any map. But it was the final line that made her blood freeze. Homo sapiens lycanthropus, patient 0. Her flashlight beam caught something. Elsa. Series of photographs pinned to a corkboard nearby. Black and white images from the 1940s showed excavation sites across Eastern Europe. Teams of scientists in hazmat suits, carefully extracting similar skeletons from mass graves. The photos progressed chronologically, revealing dozens, then hundreds of the creatures, all bearing the same impossible anatomy. A manila folder lay open beside the photographs, its contents spilling across the metal table. Research notes in multiple languages, all reaching the same horrifying conclusion. The transformation wasn't supernatural, it was evolutionary. A genetic mutation triggered by exposure to something ancient, something that had been sleeping in the earth for millennia, until human expansion disturbed its slumber. The final document made her hand shake so violently she nearly dropped it. A map of the world, marked with red dots indicating outbreak site. The pattern was unmistakable every location, where werewolf legends had emerged throughout history, corresponded to areas of recent geological disturbance, mining operation, archaeological digs, construction projects that had dug too deep, and the dates were accelerating. The most recent entries showed sites across 6 continents, all within the last decade. Fracking operations in Pennsylvania, subway construction in Tokyo, deep-sea drilling platforms in the North Atlantic, each marked with the same notation, Exposure confirmed. Containment failed. Underscore. Her breath came in short gasps as she realized the truth that governments had spent centuries concealing. The werewolf wasn't a creature of folklore, it was humanity's future. An inevitable evolutionary step triggered by contact with something that had been waiting in the deep places of the earth since before human civilization began. The transformation wasn't a curse. It was an infection, a rewriting of human DNA by microscopic entities that had survived in the planet's core for eons, patient and hungry. Every mining operation, every deep excavation, every attempt to extract resources from the Earth's depths risked exposure to the ancient contamination. And now, as humanity's hunger for resources drove them ever deeper into the planet's flesh, the exposure was becoming unavoidable. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting dancing shadows across the specimen jars. In the wavering illumination, she could see other containers she hadn't noticed before. Smaller specimens floating in their chemical bath. Children's skeletons, their bones already showing the telltale signs of transformation. The final photograph in the folder showed a familiar skyline. Her own city, taken just last week. Red circles marked construction sites throughout the metropolitan area, deep foundation work for the new subway system, geothermal drilling for the university's expansion project. All of them digging into the same geological stratum that had yielded the specimens surrounding them. As she stood in that chamber of horrors, surrounded by the evidence of humanity's approaching metamorphosis, Helena finally understood why the legends spoke of the full moon. Not because it triggered the change, but because it was the only time the transformed could bear to look upon what they had lost their humanity reflected in that pale, distant light, forever beyond their reach. The lights went out completely, leaving her alone in the darkness with the truth that would soon consume the world.